We got the Zastava Z-PAP M70, and it is touted as one of the best import AKs you can currently get for the price. And I'm not going to completely disagree, but I've been testing it for a while now, and there are some things you're going to want to know about. Alright, before we get into this review, I gotta ask you guys, are you into AKs because of the aesthetic? Or do you truly believe that the AK is the superior platform and even better than ARs? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm really curious where you guys stand on that. Now, I want to thank our sponsor of today's video, which is Grab a Gun. They did provide the Z-PAP M70 and the ammo for testing. And as honest and blunt as I am in all my reviews, and I try not to let relationships and partnerships sway my videos in any way, I know you guys like it when the manufacturer of a product is not necessarily involved in the review. So it's an awesome sponsorship opportunity from Grab a Gun, and I'm really thankful for it. So I will have links down below, as well as some of the other accessories I've used in my setup and some of the other gear I've used during my testing. Now, that aside, we're going to go over briefly some of the specs and details, get some close-up shots of the Zastava Z-PAP M70 so you guys can kind of see the quality you will be getting and what this thing looks like up close. And then I'm going to share an accuracy test and real-world results that I got. And then I'm going to go over some pros and cons, and then I'm going to share just my overall experience and opinion on the Z-PAP M70. It is talked about a lot on the internet about being one of the best import AKs you can get for the price. But like I mentioned earlier, you know, there are some things that you're going to want to know about. So with that said, let's jump into the specs and details. Starting up front, it does come with a standard 14x1 left-hand threaded slant brake, which has 2 notches for both left and right-hand shooters. But you guys can see that I did swap that out for a reared-in manufacturing muzzle brake. That way I was able to shoot it suppressed during my testing. Now the barrel that Zastava is putting on these import M70s is a cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel, which is one of the things that really makes this AK stand out. Moving back to the gas tube, if you're new to Yugo style AKs, you will notice that it is a little bit longer than your typical AKM, and the wooden handguards that come on this M70 are really nice. However, I did swap these out for surplus handguards just so I could go for a different aesthetic. The front and rear sights are pretty typical of your AK platform. The front sight is windage and elevation adjustable, and your rear sight is elevation adjustable for different distances. The safety on the M70 is a little bit different, and it has a notch to hold the bolt open, but in my experience, it actually doesn't work very well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. On the other side, it does have an optic rail, and again, if you're not familiar with the Yugo platform, it is different than a lot of other AKs, so if you do plan on buying an optic mount, just make sure you choose one that's designed for the Yugo pattern. The pistol grip it came with is a Tango down pistol grip, which I actually really liked as far as its ergonomics, but once again, I did swap that out for aesthetic reasons. The steel magazine it comes with does have a weapon tech follower that actually holds the bolt open when the magazine is empty. You'll notice on the M70 that the receiver does look a little bit different with its bulged trunnion up front, which does add some rigidity. And I should also note at this point that the receiver is 1.5 millimeters, which is quite a bit thicker than a lot of other AKs, and it does add a good amount of weight. To remove the recoil spring on the M70, you do have to depress a retaining button, which again is different than other AKs. Now the stock that came on mine was the fixed triangle stock version, and one of the pros to the fixed stock is because it is easy to swap out to the JMac Picatinny adapter, which allows you to install a Picatinny mounted stock, and there's a lot of different great options out there. The stock that I chose, once again for aesthetic reasons, is the Sig Sauer MCX Minimalist Plus. I like the minimalist look, and the fact that it folds is really nice for transport. The trigger it comes with is nothing to write home about, but I wouldn't say that it's worse than other AK triggers. And last but not least is one of the best details, and that's the price point. Over at Grab-A-Gun, you could get one of these things for under $1,000. Now the big question is what is that $1,000 getting you as far as quality and performance? So let's jump on over to the accuracy portion of this review, and I'm going to share with you guys some of the results that I got. So for the accuracy test, I used 4 different types of ammo, shooting at 100 yards, and I did 5-shot groups. I do want to preface this test and say that I did have ideal conditions. It was a pretty nice day, and there wasn't much wind at all. The first ammo I tested was the Tula 122 grain full metal jacket, and that grouped just under 4.5 inches. The second ammo I tested was the Bellum 123 grain full metal jacket. That grouped at 3.25 inches. The third ammo I tested is the Hornady Black 123 grain SST, and that grouped at 7 inches. And as much as I would love to say I have an excuse for that, I shot that group and felt really good about it, and 7 inches is what it grouped at. And the fourth type of ammo was the PPU 123 grain full metal jacket, and that also grouped at 3.25 inches. Now oddly enough, the most expensive ammo I tested, the Hornady Black, had the worst group, and the Tula, kind of about what I would expect, and then the PPU and the Bellum, 3.25 inches, I'd say that's about average for an AK. So as far as accuracy goes, it's not the best in the world, but I think a lot of it may have to do with the trigger. I didn't want to swap out the trigger in this build because that is a lot of the performance you're getting is how it shoots. So a lot of the stuff I changed was aesthetic stuff, but I did want to keep the trigger on here for the accuracy test just to get real world results. But it is pretty gritty, and I would imagine if I were to throw something like an ALG trigger in here, I could probably tighten up those groups significantly. So maybe in the future I'll upgrade the trigger and revisit an accuracy test and share with you guys on Instagram or something. But as it stands, the best group I got was 3.25 inches, and I've seen worse. That's about, I would say 3.25 inches is combat accurate for an AK. So not terrible, but not great either. So now let's go over some of the pros and cons and my overall experience. As nice as this rifle looks, it's not perfect, and I did run into a couple issues. None that I would say are necessarily deal breakers, but just some stuff that you may want to know about if you were to get into one of these. One of the first things I noticed was that the rivets are a little tight and are pinching the receiver just a little bit up front. The cutout in the safety doesn't exactly hold the bolt securely. Every time I've tried using it, the bolt seems to just slip past. Now, I personally don't care about that feature. I don't really have any need to hold the bolt back like that, but having that cutout in the safety just kind of leaves you an opening for debris to get in. So in my mind, it's just kind of useless, and it's just more of a nuisance than anything. So it would be cool to see just a regular safety on there. I haven't been able to find any aftermarket ones. I haven't looked too hard, but maybe there's one out there, I just haven't found it. But yeah, wasn't a huge fan of that. Now, contrary to a lot of other reports online about this being a soft shooter and slightly undergassed, mine was pretty overgassed in the very beginning, way before I ever suppressed it. Shooting it completely stock, I was ejecting brass or steel cases about 30 to 40 feet. And so I knew I was going to suppress this, and so I just, before I would even try doing an ALG spring, I just went straight to the K&S adjustable piston, which was an amazing upgrade. I highly suggest the K&S piston. Suppress it or not, just get one. It makes it shoot so much better. You could finally tune it, and it really is a really nice upgrade. And another one of the problems I ran into was with the button that retains the recoil spring. I think because mine was overgassed, it started to push back on that button, and there's like a little pin in there, and I think it started to bend it. And so there was a point where I went to disassemble and clean this rifle where that button was really hard to push, and I had to smack it with a plastic hammer to break it free. And I thought about it, and I realized, I'd rather just not use that feature. So I actually purchased just a regular AKM recoil spring that was the same length, and just put that in there. And so this button doesn't necessarily lock it in anymore. I could just push it freely and just no problems there. So you may not have that same problem, but that was just something that I wanted to avoid. So I just threw in a different recoil spring in there and called it a day. And the last con is something that can happen to a lot of AKs, it wasn't perfectly zeroed out of the box. I did have to adjust the windage. I had to move it over to the right about 3 inches. Not a huge deal, but you know, it would be nice if you can get something right out of the box and just have it dead on. And now for the pros. There are a lot of things that I love about this rifle. First one being, this is probably one of the best looking AKs I've seen personally. I really like mine, specifically the way that I put some of the surplus stuff on there as well as the folding stock. I think the M70 and the Yugo platform in general just makes for a really good platform for a highly aesthetic AK if you're going for that vibe. And as far as reliability goes, I've used KCI magazines, X-Tech magazines, Magpul magazines, Palmetto State Armory magazines, and a Century Arms drum magazine. Throughout the 1,500 rounds I've shot through it, I haven't had a single problem as far as reliability. One of the other things I like is I had no issue suppressing it when I put on my Reardon Manufacturing muzzle brake for my suppressor adapter. I didn't have any concentricity issues. It was good to go. Once I got the K&S piston installed, this thing was just a dream to tune and shoot. And the added weight from the 1.5mm receiver, some people might look at that extra weight as a bad thing, but it actually just makes it that much nicer to shoot because it's absorbing a lot of that recoil, and it just makes it feel like a more solid platform to shoot, and it's really nice to shoot. Something else I really like is the ease of swapping over to a Picatinny adapter in the back. It is literally just one bolt that you unscrew, and then you could pop on something like the JMAC Customs Picatinny adapter. You bolt it on, and then you're good to go to pick whatever Picatinny stock you'd want to put on there. When it comes to modifying it, I know a lot of people don't go with Yugos because there isn't as many aftermarket parts out there, but that is changing. It seems like year by year we're getting more and more companies providing aftermarket parts for the Yugo platform. And on top of that, there's a lot of surplus stuff out there that just looks really cool. It's really nice. I got the M64 grip and the wooden handguard from Apex Tactical. The handguard was covered in Cosmoline, but it was easy to clean off, and once I stripped it, I just put on about 5 coats of boiled linseed oil, and that's what gives you this really nice natural finish, and I really like how it came out. It looks really good. So that about wraps up my experience with the M70 from Zastava. It is a beautiful rifle. Yes, I had some ups and downs and some things that I had to work through, but at the price point of under $1,000, in my mind, it makes it worth working through some of those things. Now this is a sample of one, so yours may not be overgassed like mine was, and if you get one, it may be perfectly zeroed out of the box. But it's just such a good looking gun, and once you get it tuned, it's really nice to shoot. I really enjoy it, and it's something for me personally that I definitely want to keep in my collection. I'm an AR guy, I'm a bolt action guy, but when it comes to AKs, I like the aesthetic. That's me personally, and for me, that is a reason to buy something like this. So these reviews, I think it's important that you guys know some of the cons that can happen though, because this has been kind of glorified in a lot of YouTube reviews and on the internet as just this an amazing rifle that you get for the money, and it is, but there's just some things that you should know about that could happen with yours. So that about wraps up my review, guys. If you guys are interested in any of the gear that I used in this video, like the scopes and some of the other accessories I've used, again, I will have links down in the description box for you guys. And once again, I'll have links down to Grab a Gun. I want to thank them as a sponsor for this video, and go show them your support. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Thank you to everyone who subscribed to the channel. You guys seriously rock. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time.